Hello everyone, I am Veos and welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program video. Space Truckers. Now this concept has been around for a very long time about what would happen when space travel became normalized. Things like logistics and cargo transportation and all this jazz would turn into an everyday thing. As civilization expanded beyond its home planet into its surrounding moons and further out, you would need some way to transport goods and cargo throughout the colonies and space stations in that general area. Therefore, because of supply and demand, you'd need to design a craft capable of delivering all of these goods to, the colonies and space stations and outposts and stuff. Now, what would these space trucks look like? How would they be built? Well, realistically, if it's at a certain point in time where there's still chemical rocket engines, you would need to build a craft that was kind of designed to stay out of the way of the rocket plume that came out of the back of these rocket engines. And since form follows function, the space trucks would be designed with the engines either in the very back or towards up front but stretched out a ways, preferably with a type of heat shielding to keep it from burning up the cargo. Now, realistically speaking, everything is driven through finances or money. In other words, the companies that have these space trucks or purchase these space trucks would look for something that's basically the cheapest. They're willing to spend a little bit more if it means that the entire life cycle of the truck would be cheaper. But of course, you would have some companies that would just buy a really cheap space truck and have to eat the cost of maintenance down the road. Stuff like that exists in real life as well. The lesson here is that you get what you pay for. A more economic design would have the engines in the very back, because you wouldn't have to worry about carrying around heat blast shields on the sides of these engines, or wingtips that have them mount the engines further away from the chassis. So even though the design looks cool, economically speaking, you're carrying more weight. Not much, but enough to make a noticeable difference in your delta V. However, a forward-facing design for a space truck would actually be easier to maneuver, because instead of pushing an object, you're pulling it. I mean, you could do a reverse forward-facing design. This would eliminate the need for heat shields to protect the cargo, because when you have something heavy like that and you're transporting something real heavy like that, you need a system where your RCS thrusters can control the heavy payload. So you're going to need something sticking out there to help with control. So for this particular design, I went ahead and went for a forward-facing engine type of design. Yes, it would be a little heavier than having an engine that's placed in the back, because you wouldn't have to worry about shielding or pylons sticking out to mount the engines further to the side. So economically speaking, it would be better to have the engines in the back, but that's not what we're doing today. Obviously, if you want to get some miles out of this thing, you're going to need nerve engines. I didn't want the nerve engines just to be sticking out raw like that, kind of like having a car without its hood. I wanted it to be covered in some way. So the cool thing about the nerve engine in KSP is that you have like a shroud, kind of a fairing. You can activate this fairing by putting something in front of the nuclear engine and just offsetting it further back. Be careful not to hit the spacebar, or else this will go flying. But I think it looks good. I mean, if you really wanted to fuck it up, you could go ahead and just offset it all the way to the back of the damn gas tank. But who gives a fuck, right? At first, I wanted to give it a brown color. If you're interested about the mods that I use, check out the description below. But I was going to use I was going to use the brown color to make it look old at first, used. But then I was like, maybe that's just the color of the spacecraft. I've seen plenty of trucks driving down the road that are different types of colors. So, this one's kind of a brown, dark gray theme. I didn't want it to be completely brown and dark gray, so I gave it little red stripes here and there just to kind of detail it. And for those of you wondering, yes, I have now downloaded the mod that allows you to type in stuff decal wise. Forget what it was called. And it's actually really nice. I'm happy. I am happy. Of course, I'll still use flags where I need to, but for the most part, it works out really well. It's just too bad that it only decals one part. unless there's a setting that I'm completely bypassing that allows you to do multiple parts at the same time. It is kind of sad it only does one part, whereas a flag can cover multiple parts. So there you go. Now I have been confronted about using all these mods: the scatter mod, the parallax mod, the paint mod, the decal mod. Well, now the decal mod anyway. Saying that now I'm no longer playing a fully stock KSP game anymore. That there's so many mods that somehow now it changes the way the crafts operate. The problem with that is that these mods in particular only change the looks of the game. They make the game more pleasant to look at. They do not in any way, shape, or form change the delta V or the aerodynamics of any of the parts. And the ones that do add a few new parts to the game, kind of like Kerbal Engineer, it adds a part that you could put onto your spacecraft in order to do readouts and stuff of this nature. You can have the mod without it, but during career gameplay, the ability to have that mod do readouts automatically is switched off, and in order for it to be switched on, you need to add this extra part that the mod puts in there. It's a fun little aspect, and I don't really have that much qualm about it, but just know that with some file tweaking, you can have those readouts available to you without any of the extra parts that the mod puts into your game. That being said, that's pretty much it. All of these crafts could easily exist without the mod. They don't need mods to exist. If I took the craft file and put it into a brand spanking new download of KSP, it would give me a bunch of warning signs on the craft saying, hey, you need this, 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 and then that, and that, and that. But as soon as I loaded it up anyway, it would just be the craft. The same color, white, black color template. There'd be nothing on the craft at all that would be missing, since it's all stock. DLC, of course, breaking ground and making history, but I consider those as stock because they were made by Squad, even though they are DLC. Plus, making the game look better, it just breathes new life into it. Ever since I downloaded this color mod and now this decal mod, I've had a flood of ideas and different crafts that I want to go ahead and try to build and paint that I didn't have before, because if you make them in KSP without any mods whatsoever, yeah, they would work, but they would, well, look like crap. So anyway, where was I going with this? So yeah, space trucks. Space trucks should not be confused with space freighters. Space trucks are a short distance transport vehicle, mainly between planet station and moon stations. That's it. Unless you have a larger vehicle that the space truck connects to, or some sort of futuristic hypergate ring system to allow space trucks to jump between planets in a solar system, you're not going to want to make the journey with a small little cabin space truck, the year-long journey or whatever it takes. For cargo to leave Kerbin and go to, say, Jewel or Duna, the space truck would dock with a type of interplanetary distribution center station. It would be pretty big because goods and stuff would be coming in and out of that one station from other planets. So the space truck would leave Kerbin Station, go to the interplanetary station, unload its cargo, while at the same time picking up cargo from outside of Kerbin to bring back to Kerbin or one of its moons. And at this station, you would see large interplanetary space freighters. It would be identical to what we got going on here on Earth, with your 18-wheelers going in and out of seaports. The big old freighter would come in, unload its cargo at the seaport, and you'd have 18-wheelers driving in, picking up these cargo containers and delivering them to the proper areas. So same concept, but in space. Now let's talk about the type of cargo containers that these space trucks would deliver within the planetary system. Not interplanetary system, but the actual system itself, where Kerbin and the moons, and that's it. And I'm going to tell you right now, fuel would not be one of those transported goods. And I'll tell you why. First off, fuel is heavy. In order to transport fuel from, say, Kerbin to the moon, you would need to burn almost the same amount of fuel, getting there, slowing down, and docking with a station. By that time, the fuel that you've delivered there will need to be used up in order to refuel the truck, space truck, that got it there. So it's almost a moot point. It needs fuel in order to connect to another cargo container for the trip back. Almost the same amount of fuel that it delivered there in the first place. So money-wise, Otherwise, you would actually be losing money, because by the time the fuel got there, you just need to use it up anyway for the trip back. You really wouldn't be delivering anything because it would be used for the trip back for other cargo. So who would buy it? Why would I, a space station owner or whatever, or company around the moon, buy fuel from Kerbal just to turn around and sell it back to the truck driver, the space truck driver, for his return trip back to Kerbal? It makes no sense. However, delivering fuel from the surface of a planet or moon to an orbiting station, now you can make bank. This, of course, would not be a space truck, but more of a lander or SSTO, depending on where you're coming from. I guess it could be considered a space truck. Yeah, I guess it could still be considered a space truck, you know, in a sense. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that? When does a space truck not become a space truck anymore when delivering fuel from the surface of a planet or moon to an orbiting space station? Imagine having a spacecraft capable of VTOL or whatever the case may be, and you're landing at a fuel refinery on, say, Minmus. You take the 36-ton fuel tank, fly up into orbit, and deliver it to the station. Well, by that time, I'm pretty sure you still have plenty of fuel, so you go back down and grab another tank and bring it back up before you need to refuel. So technically, you are making money. And with mining ore and turning it into fuel, that would probably be the better bet. The fuel refinery would be in orbit, while the mining colony would be on the moon or planet. Because not only does ore take up less space, even though it's just as heavy as the fuel is, you can then take that ore and turn it into whatever once in the space station. So your options are a lot less limited. If I was a space station owner, I could get ore from a nearby moon that I'm orbiting and turn it into whatever I need, which would make more profit in the long run, because I'm not stuck with umpteen thousands of gallons of liquid fuel and oxidizer. But in reality, I need a hell of a lot more liquid fuel because of the nuclear engines that people are running these days, and also monopropellant. I'm stuck with all this oxidizer. It would suck. So it's a lot better for me to just make on demand, in a sense. So as a space station owner, I would buy the ore, not the fuel. Makes sense. Now, however, when it comes to xenon gas, there's no way to mine and create it on other worlds. So it's a type of fuel that comes straight from Kerbal, only for whatever reason. So if you have some sort of ship or probe that is based off of that kind of fuel, it only makes more sense that the farther away from the source you get, the more expensive it'll become. It'll get to the point where it becomes so expensive that ships that are operated further out from Kerbal won't even use the ion engine for whatever means. It just won't be worth it when it comes to how expensive it will get the farther you have to ship the shit. You know what I mean? But maybe up close, maybe somewhere around Kerbal's influence, maybe it's profitable for that kind of fuel, but I don't know. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. It gets complicated. I'm not gonna shit you here. It gets fucking complicated. But yeah, space truckers. There you go. I don't know what class this would be called. Hammerhead, maybe? I have a lot of ideas for different types of space trucks. Like maybe having a nice spoiler that goes from one engine to the other. Like a nice little arc kind of thing going on. Maybe a little something on the tip of the spoiler, like a communications dish or whatever. Maybe even a escape pod of some kind on the bottom. Or for the rear mounted engine types, it could have kind of like arms that go around the cargo in order to have RCS up front and in the back. But there you go. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for being a part of this channel. If you liked what you saw, please leave a like, and if you loved what you saw, consider subscribing. We also have a membership program. If you become a member, you get cool little emojis and badges and stuff next to your name. Pretty cool. Check it out. And don't forget to hit that bell notification, because if you don't, as always, YouTube will not notify you of shit that I put out. Nothing. You might get lucky and have it pop up in one of your YouTube thingamabobbers, but for the most part, according to YouTube, I will not exist. So anyway, thank you so much again, and love you all. Stay safe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now. Bye-bye.